Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. As I have to remind you, the last couple of shows, we're in the middle of the election season, and we continue in that vein tonight. We have the two competitors for the Coffee County Sheriff's position are with us tonight. The incumbent, Sheriff Steve Graves, and challenger in the person of Chad Martin. And so welcome, lads, and thanks very much for taking time to join us. I figured we knew Sheriff Graves pretty well, but I found out we probably also know Chad Martin pretty well. That he's been in the law enforcement business himself in Coffee County and otherwise has worked quite a lot with Sheriff Graves. So he's pretty well known as well. So we have two good, would appear to be pretty qualified candidates, and that's a good position to be in. So we hope you're planning to get out there and vote, folks. We need to do that. We tend to have a light turnout, and that's not good for our democratic system. So with that, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll come back and get into the subject.
All I have to do to think about what I was physically before and what I am now, and I don't ever want to go back to that original situation.
The overall mission of the rehab team is always what is best for the patient and how we can facilitate maximum potential from every resident.
Well, the most important thing to me is that I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do,
Everyday miracles at Life Care Center of Tullahoma.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Harris. I've been providing communication services throughout the United States since 1985. But instead of me telling you about the services I provide, I'll let some of my clients speak for me.
Hi, I'm Nancy Jernigan with Coffee County Realty and Auction Company. Jerry came to see us some time back, and even though we weren't ready for our phone system, he looked at our bill and he saved us over $200 a month. When we get ready for our new phone system, I'm sure we will be calling Jerry.
Host My Calls is by far the best service I have ever placed with any of my clients. It provides cost-saving solutions while providing great communications. Call me today, 931-581-4411. See how Host My Calls can save you.
Our guests today, folks, are our two candidates for Coffee County Sheriff, the incumbent Steve Graves and challenger Chad Martin. Sheriff Graves has provided us a pretty meaty subject for the show tonight. He has just finished submitting his budget to the county budget and what do they call it? The budget
and finance.
Yeah. Budget and Finance Committee, and that's a bit of an eye-opener. His overall increase is about 1.3 million, which is equates to something like 16%. And there are good reasons behind that, and we want to get into those as things go along. I thought I might begin by giving, since Steve submitted the budget, obviously he's very familiar with it and in favor of it. I thought I would give Chad a chance to just, you got a general reaction to the budget, a comment that you'd like to make?
Well, Tom, I understand why the sheriff's doing what he's doing and what he's asking for. He's trying to take care of the men and women and the staff of the sheriff's office. And we have been underpaid in that department for some time. It's hard to compete with the two municipalities here in Coffee County, Tullahoma and Manchester, along with AEDC. They hire a lot of folks out of the sheriff's office, and over the years, I think the sheriff would agree, he's been used as a training ground. So the turnover is rapid, and it costs us a lot of money to retain good employees. I sit here myself as one of those that left seeking more money, but I also left to seek and prepare to run for sheriff. But back to this budget, you know, it's a two-edged sword, double-edged sword, and I understand why the sheriff's trying to take care of the men and women, and I commend him for it. He's brave for doing it, especially this time during this election cycle. He's going to be scrutinized for it. You know, I'm praying and hoping that those folks do get what they deserve, but I know that comes at a cost. It's going to be dependent on how much the citizens call upon their county commissioners to either say yay or nay. We could potentially, I think, Sheriff, maybe a 5 to 6 cent property tax increase, but we may, you know, owing to what our certified tax rate is by July 1, maybe they'll find out by June 30th about our revenues coming in
from the state.
From the state, you know, it might be able to offset a lot for the sheriff. So, you know, granted, I am his opponent. I'm not gouging him for what he's doing. I have a different outlook on some things of streamlining and that kind of thing, but he's staying the course with his system of management. And again, I praise him, because if I was still working for him, I would be sitting there hoping that I was going to be up for a raise. Yes, sir.
He succeeds. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and we might. I think it's worth saying that the increases, which he submitted the budget in 3 parts, folks. There's one for the jail, one for the annex, and one for the sheriff's department itself. The ones for the jail and the annex have, particularly annex, have pretty substantial increases, and there's a reason for that. The sheriff's department itself is only 4%, so it's not a big item as such. So, and the increases, frankly, are driven primarily by pay, and that's going to be the big issue. And the sheriff says that at the current salary structure, he is not competitive, and that results in a lot of turnover, and that results in a lot of additional training expense, and so it's a kind of a vicious cycle. So competitive pay is one of the overriding issues, and the question of the annex, I think we need to give a little particular attention to, and it is one of the major issues that's going to have to get settled in this go around. So, Steve, give the folks an idea. You're not competitive by how much? Is that a big problem? Net-sized problem?
It's a very big problem. We're able to keep employees for about 2 years, usually on contract after we spend
2?
Yeah, we do a 2-year contract if we send deputies to the academy and get them post-certified, and they'll stay with us for 2 years. But, and, you know, a lot of times these officers are in their 20s, and you know, they start a family, and they go from making less than $15 an hour to making $18, $19 an hour. And you know, you can't really blame them for leaving the sheriff's department. You know, my budget was put together to try to at least be close. It was still under $16 for the road. I was
going to say, you're not looking at $18 or $19.
No, it's still under $16 for patrol. And then I've got now 77 corrections officers that are making $11.87 an hour. And, you know, they're in just about as much danger as people out here on the streets, because, you know, they're dealing with inmates on a 24/7 basis. And I asked to increase them up to $13 and a few cents. You know, I know it's probably not the time to do that, but you know, I've got to show these men and women that Coffee County does care about them.
Yeah. Well, I don't, you know, to get much of an increase, there's never a good time, I would think.
And as far as the annex, now, in last year's budget, over a third of the annex wasn't even figured in last year because it wasn't operational.
Right.
You know, this is the first year it's been fully operational, and it is certified. But to give you a little history, the annex was built back in 2000, and I think opened in 2001, with the agreement that the mayor and myself would not request any additional pay to operate a annex, which is, by statute, we could get $10,000 each apiece. We had an agreement. We've stuck to that agreement. You know, the annex has been a great buffer for us. But, you know, I'm not going to, I don't get anything for the annex, so I'm not going to fight the mayor, you know, if he wants to close the annex. I think it's a bad mistake, I really do. Because I like to see people out working. I like to see them picking up trash, litter, working for senior citizens. I like to see them out in the community working.
Well, if you close the annex, you're going to move them down to the jail. Why can't you keep working them?
Because it's a continuous struggle in our facility to keep contraband out. And what we noticed in the jail itself before we moved into the new jail, you know, it's really not fair to the people that's going out into the community and working, because if an inmate gets threatened, you either bring this in or you're going to get beat up. Then we're strapped with a broken jaw medical bill or a broken orbital socket, and that's happened over and over again.
Yeah.
And you know, it just doesn't work out in the community like that. Because they're in a pod with 100 other inmates.
These are, yeah, it was interesting that another aspect of the annex, the workforce, is the fact that for every day they work, they get a day off, another day off of their sentence.
Yes, sir. And you know, we've got people at the main jail that also work. They work the kitchen. They get days off for their sentence if they go through and get their high school equivalent diploma. We've now got a garden. They get days off for every day they work in the garden. You know, there's still opportunities to work, but they're not going out into the community not having to bring back contraband.
Yeah. Okay, up to this point, Chad, you got a comment on?
Yes, sir. You know what the sheriff is saying. It's a difficult task to decide. I too want the inmates out here working. I think we need to revert back and find out why we have so many inmates in our jail. Just less than 2.5 to 3 years ago, we went from a 250 to 260 daily average. Now we're right at 400 in the main jail. You know, we probably need to expand our workhouse program. I don't want to see it shut down, but I also understand the liabilities we have by working them out of the main jail. I'm going to work inmates. I'm going to find out a way how to do it, but the way we've got to do it is look at our judicial problem as a whole. Why do we have the sentencing we have for misdemeanors? What are we going to do with our judges and our district attorney general to reduce those and get those people back into the workforce so that we can we can have jail beds for criminals and help get them rebuilt into society.
That's a good issue, and I think we'll work on that a little more, folks. But meanwhile, we need to take a short commercial break.
Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has proudly served your auto rental for over 30 years. Check out this huge selection to choose from. Small car, mid-size car, full-size car, crossover vehicle, SUV, minivan, pickup trucks, 12 and 15 passenger vans. Whether big or small, Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has them all. Stop by our 2 locations to serve you. Tullahoma, and in Winchester. And remember, my question is, why rent anywhere else?
It's time for every family and business in Tullahoma to go green and recycle. Tullahoma Public Works makes it simple and easy to recycle. Just place your recyclable materials, paper, plastic, aluminum, and cardboard beside your garbage container on the same day your garbage is picked up. Your recycled materials don't have to be in a fancy container. Recycling is not only the right thing to do, it makes sense. Recycling pays. Paying to bury our garbage costs each of us. Please do your part. Let's go green, Tullahoma, and recycle.
When your family suffers the loss of a loved one, the caring and compassionate staff at Tullahoma Funeral Home and Coffee County Funeral Chapel are standing by to assist you in every way possible. We are proud to support local industry and offer only Batesville caskets. Many funeral homes don't own or operate a crematory. We utilize the only crematory in Coffee County. Your loved one never leaves Coffee County. We can accommodate any need and any budget. Consider our complete pre-need service to remove this burden from your family during their time of grief. Lock in today's low costs and protect from inflation. Tullahoma Funeral Home and Coffee County Funeral Chapel. Our family caring for your family.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with Sheriff Steve Graves and Chad Parton, both of whom would like to be the sheriff again after the election. When we, just before the break, we picked up one of our hot button issues, which Chad was getting kind of worked up about, and that is the incarceration rate. We keep increasing the number of folks that we throw into jail, and that, of course, is contributed a lot to every one of the problems that we can bring out tonight with respect to the law enforcement budget. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are your ideas on reducing the population?
Well, Tom, and I know, as we said before the break, and the sheriff agrees with this, we've got to come together as a whole judicial system, and that means all 4 judges, our county probation department, our drug courts folks, our mental health court, our veterans court, our families court, and our district attorney general. We've got to go through and itemize every inmate we've got and prioritize why they're there, how long they've been there, and what we can do to get them out. Now, if the county government in the next few weeks and the county commission decides to shut the sheriff's annex workhouse down, he has no choice but to bring those inmates back to the sheriff's office and blend them in to an already 400
back in the jail.
Right, so that's going to put him over on capacity. Where are they going to sleep? In the floor. So the state frowns on that, okay? So what we got to do is go through and do an inventory of what we've got, and we're going to have to either look at doing some early releases, look at sending some state prisoners on and forcing them on into the state system, which is already packed and full. And then we lose revenues on that because we get board bill money from them, from the state, for housing state inmates. But if we've got all these misdemeanors, I don't think that we would have a choice but to move some state prisoners out to make room for what we've got in the workhouse.
Well, what is the what's your issue? What are we doing wrong mostly?
Well, for me, personally, when I came out as a young officer, it was go, 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 and, it was arrest, arrest, arrest. And I think we've got to change the hearts and minds of our law enforcement that it's okay to help people. We've got a lot of people in there on very minor misdemeanor cases.
Like
some of them have some high bonds that may not be able to make bond, or they're there and they can't afford bond and they can't get out. I think working with the officers in training and saying, hey, there's some things that that you might need to cite instead of arrest. Tennessee Code Annotated suggests arrest and or citation instead of arrest in many misdemeanor offenses. Is those things
like
that
what? You got an example?
Simple possession of marijuana, driving on revoked suspended license, victims against the state, not property crimes against people and properties, but crimes that would be against the county and the state. Those driving offenses, some of those minor drug offenses, we could look at in citations instead of arrest. That might help alleviate some people coming into jail. Now eventually they're going to have their day in court, and that's where the judiciary is going to have to step up and say, hey, we need to look at these alternative programs. Do we need to look at enlarging some halfway houses that we've got in the county? Do we need to look at extending probation? You know, we've got nearly 800 people on probation, county probation, and then when you add the state probation into it, it's 1,800 to 2,000 people in this county. So if you had a 2,000 bed jail today, more than likely they would be looking at a ways to fill the sheriff's jail up. So I've got to take up for him in a lot of ways.
Well, that's Steve. You want to deal with this subject?
Yeah, I mean we agree on all this, and I think it goes beyond just a county issue. I think years ago when the state started taking people's driver's license on child support for not paying court fines, you know, when you take a person's driver's license, then you take their means away to drive to work, and then they're getting caught driving on revoked, and then they're getting in the system, and they're never getting out.
Revolving door.
It's just a continuum. You know, I think we got to look at it locally. I think our state lawmakers needs to have another look at it also.
Okay, but. That's a very, and incidentally, that is a national subject these days.
Yes.
Not only at the misdemeanor level, but even higher. You know,
and like Chad said, you know, if we bring 30 people back from the annex, I've got to have 30 beds. Our board bill last month was $125,000 from the state. If I have to get rid of, that's for 94 inmates.
Board bill, that's money you got from the state for housing
housing state inmates. So I'm going to have to find a bed space for these 30 misdemeanor offenders, and the only way that I can do that is to send out state inmates.
And if you do that, you're going to lose the state money.
State money.
And you don't want to get anything in from anywhere else.
No, sir.
So that's a net loss.
Yes,
sir. Well, this looks like a kind of a round and round. Well, you got one, Mayor Cordell. One of his, it looks like he's definitely in favor of it. He's made an issue of closing the annex, and he just flat out says, you know, we could close it and save $500,000.
And you know, about a year ago, the full commission voted to give Mayor Cordell control of the annex, and you know, either to close it or to make it bigger. We spent what, $90,000 to
improve it. You mean the annex would work for the mayor instead of?
Well, it would be under the mayor's control, whether it was operational or enhanced. You know, there is room there to go up to 64 inmates.
At the annex.
At the annex, if you know, if they decide to do some work in one more room. But you know, it is the mayor's call, and you know, like I said, I don't have a say-so in that because I don't draw a salary from operating the annex. I don't see how we're going to save money. I just don't.
You say you don't draw a salary, but the annex presently works for you, right? Whoever's running the annex.
Well, the mayor is in control of it, but we operate it for them, for the county. I mean, we do the meals, we do the medical, we supply the inmates, but now the mayor does have full control to shut it down.
Okay. Does he have to ask anybody else?
I really don't think so. I think once the county commission put it under the mayor's authority, you know, he could tell us tomorrow to pull the inmates, and we wouldn't have any choice but to do that. I don't think he would do anything that quick, or you know, I think he would do a lot more study on the annex.
Well, we've gotten into some pretty interesting issues, folks, and we could spend more time on it. I hope we've been able to enlighten you a little bit at some of the issues that are facing the Sheriff's Department and the folks that are going to have to come up with the money to operate it. But meanwhile, as we always do, we've run out of time. We're going to have to take a short commercial break and wrap up.
Russell's got your truck, man. Russell's got your truck.
Big, bigger, and even bigger. Russell Barnett has any size truck for any size need. Chevrolet, Ford, GMC, Ram. Check us out on the web at russellbarnett.com. Our selection is so huge, we may need our own zip code. So my question is, why buy your next truck anywhere else?
With the best selection anywhere, Russell's got your truck, man.
The day the Lord created hope could be the same day he created spring.
Springtime's here. It's a good time to get our air conditioners checked out before those hot summer days get here. We've been here for a little over 35 years. It's been our pleasure to serve our community. We'd like to thank you for Tullahoma's finest, and from all of us to all of you.
Thank you.
Well, we're back, folks. We've been talking today with the two candidates for Coffee County Sheriff. That is the incumbent, Sheriff Steve Graves, and the challenger, Chad Parton. And Chad also has a great deal of experience in the law enforcement field. And so we're fortunate to have, I think, two good candidates out there. We've mentioned that there are several very serious overriding issues that are going to have to be dealt with. The sheriff's budget, as submitted, is a pretty substantial increase, and the question is going to be whether the Budget and Finance Committee and the Commission as a whole and the people are willing to support coming up. And one of the major issues is pay. And it looks that the Sheriff's Department is kind of under the gun on all sides. They are underpaid in almost every category, and that causes them to lose people. They got a lot of turnover and a lot of retraining, so it's a kind of a vicious cycle. We do need to step up to it. The question is how far? And so I want to thank both of you for taking time to be with us and to share your views. It's been very helpful, and it'd be nice if we had some more time, but we don't. So with that, folks, we thank you for inviting us into your parlor, and we'll see you next time.